Let's go to Mike in Maine.
Hey now, Howard.
Hey now.
Hey now. Hey, so I kind of had forgotten Trump went to your wedding. Do you have any specific memories of anything that went on with him at your wedding? Not even bad, just at all.
Trump was at my wedding. Donald Trump and
I sat next to him.
yeah, Donald Trump and Melania. And I remember Joan Rivers was at your table too, Robin.
Yes.
And rest in peace, Joan. Oh, Joan was such
And so was Barbara Walters.
Barbara Walters was at that table, but first of all, rest in peace, Joan Rivers. She was so bad at my wedding.
She was.
She was so bad. I remember.
It was a running commentary.
Yeah, she was just commenting on everyone in a particularly negative mood. Like Phoebe Snow, who perhaps is one of the greatest singers. Again, another woman who has died, but was a friend of mine and very, very nice to me. And I just thought she was tremendous talent. And Phoebe got up to sing this beautiful song to me and Beth. And Joan was. I was standing behind Joan watching, and I hear Joan in the background going, "Who is that? Who is that? Tell her to sit down." Oh, like, it was so great. I was like, "Oh my God, look at this moment! I'm getting married, and Phoebe Snow has agreed to sing a song to me, and Joan's complaining, 'Who is that? Sit down.'"
Yeah, I can't even repeat her worst comment. It was just so offensive.
So I said to Joan, she's probably one of the best singers I've ever heard in my life. Oh, okay. Like she couldn't care. She didn't even care that it was my moment.
Yeah.
It was so typical of her. But and Donald Trump and Melania were there. And what I do remember is that Donald and Melania, they were one of the last couples to leave, and I was kind of surprised by that because he's usually known for coming in and coming out in 10 minutes.
He enjoyed himself.
But I think he had a great time, and I remember looking over at one point, and I think Pat Monahan was singing from Train, and he was dancing with his wife, and I was very happy to see my guests, all of them, including Donald and Melania, having such a good time. I'm one of those guys when I have a party, I hate having a party because I'm so nervous that people are having a bad time. I feel
that
personally...
was a fun time for all, I think.
It was a really fun wedding, and I remember Donald did say to me something about, gee, this was such a great party, I had such a good time, that kind of thing.
Well, the one thing I remember was the Chevy Chase moment, because then the Donald became Donald.
Where he got upset?
Oh, when Chevy got up and did his speech that nobody had asked for,
yeah,
Donald just looked at me and said, "Loser."
Yeah. Chevy had gotten up and started this very raucous kind of speech to me about how I gave him herpes. And my wife was kind of shocked. And I actually thought it was really funny. Mm-hmm. But most people in the room were thinking it was just in poor taste and not funny. And Robin was sitting with Donald Trump, so I didn't know this. But Robin says that Donald was deeply offended.
Yeah, he was like, "What is that? What is that? What? Loser."
But, that's what's particularly confusing about our times right now. I do consider Donald Trump a friend, and he was always very nice to me and nice to a lot of people I knew. But, my politics are very different. And I remember when he said he was going to run for president, are you going to back me, blah, blah, blah. And I remember saying, Donald, I'm a big Hillary Clinton supporter. I've always wanted her. I wanted her over Obama when back, 8 years prior. I just thought, I still to this day think she would be a fantastic president. So it was very odd for me personally for a guy who had been so great on our show and who was so nice to me and my wife. And we've spent many times with Donald and his wife. One time he gave me a ride and some helicopter he had and the whole thing. So, I like Donald very much personally. I was shocked when he decided to run for president, and even more shocked that sort of people took it seriously. And I still feel, I remember saying to him when he announced this presidency, I remember being quite amazed because I remember him being for Hillary Clinton. And I remember him also being he was pro-abortion. So the new Donald Trump kind of surprised me. And I think a lot of what's happened is that, Donald went out and he took the conservative approach. He ran as a conservative Republican. And part of me doesn't even believe I don't believe that, for example, now he's had some sort of rethink on abortion and all this. I think he's, sort of playing it to his constituency, which is this religious right.
But he's acting in accordance with it.
Yeah, and I think, in a way, I don't think his goal was ever to be political. I think that his goal is to be a great businessman. And I think a lot of great businessmen, especially when you listen to like conservative radio, and conservative radio or any kind of radio is just shock radio. It's kind of shocking. So you go, yeah, let's build a wall. That's the answer. Or you hear that the country is going bankrupt. So you go, I could get rid of the debt. It's very simple. You just cut this and cut that. But then when you become president, you all of a sudden realize when you cut something, you're cutting out a lot of people in the country. And it's not so simple because it's not like running a business. In a business, you can say, okay, I'm not going to have $30,000 a month budget for wine, and therefore I just cut $30,000. But when you run a country,
But you could also say in a business, I'm laying off 30,000 people.
Yes. And the problem with running the government is when you lay off 30,000 people, you could throw us into a depression. So it's a very difficult job. And in a way, I know something about Donald Trump. He really does want to be loved. He does want people to really love him. That drives him a lot. I think that he has a very sensitive ego. And when you're president of the United States, people are going to be very, very critical. And I think in his mind right now, he's saying, gee, I want to protect the country. I want to ban these immigrants who come from countries where there are terrorists and stuff. I think his motive is, wow, people will love me because I'm going to keep terrorists out of the country. And I think he's genuinely shocked when people come back and say, well, wait a second, there's more to this. If you ban people from, let's say, Iraq, then we can't make deals with them to help us in our war over there.
Yeah, and if we're bombing their people every day, Howard, and they just want to get to a safe place, shouldn't we? I mean,
That's right. Well, but the problem is
that nothing is cut and dry. It's not black and white.
It's not black and white, and so he's
trying to simplify it down to the dumbest level, almost. Not even the dumb. I don't mean to say it like that, but even more like the most basic level. And people.
Well, that's what talk radio does. That's what talk radio does. When you're a Rush Limbaugh or a Bill O'Reilly, it's good television to make these blanket statements. We've got $1 trillion deficit. All they got to do is cut, blah, blah, blah. As soon as you start cutting, though, you start to realize a couple of people got fired. Your neighbor isn't doing well. He can't sell his house, blah, blah, blah. And it's so complex. And I had said to Donald when he first, we talked a lot on the phone and he announced he was going to run for president. I really was sincere. I said, why would you want to be the president of the United States? You're not going to be beloved. It's going to be a fucking nightmare in your life, because I do think he's sincere in wanting to help out, and I think he's sincere when he says he has the answers. But he stepped into a situation that's really not a win for him, and it's going to be agita. He's a 70-year-old guy. He's got a great life, gorgeous wife, great kids. He's got helicopters, airplanes. He's got all the accoutrements
of a great life. He's got all the stuff
life.
Johnny Depp wants.
Yes, Johnny Depp is wishing he could have what Donald Trump has. And so now to step into this fucking mess, and for what? There are people who are better suited for this kind of thing, and they don't need it. He didn't need this in his life. And it's very awkward for me personally because I like Donald. I do. I like him a lot. But I'm not a guy who thinks the same way politically, and I don't even know that he thought this way politically a couple of years ago.
I don't know that you talked politics with Donald Trump.
No, we never did. In fact, I used to talk. I go, man, you got some fucking place down Mar-a-Lago. That's a restaurant. I mean, that was the level of my conversation. So.
Yeah, but as a president, you can't go around bragging about how great you are and about how much money you have.
No, but you can do that as a businessman. That was his model as a businessman.
He's always throwing out how I know this guy and I know that guy. Well, we know that you know him, but you're so he made it a point that Hillary Clinton was going to sell us out to all these corporations, and all he's done is put Goldman Sachs people and Exxon and all these other maniacs and people like Betsy DeVos or Betsy DeVos. People like that. And
listen, I'll tell you this:
over our country,
he is sincere in his belief that he is doing well for the country.
I don't want Betsy DeVos to take my tax dollars and go give them to some private school so they can profit.
And that's why I told him not to run for president, because a guy like you is going to be evaluating him. And by the way, you're his boss.
And that's why.
And he's not used to having a boss.
Corporate profiteer too. I didn't vote for either one of those people, but I just think that if you're a Donald Trump voter, you should be angry that he's selling us out to those same corporations that Hillary Clinton was going to sell us out to as well, because they all donate to both parties. Basically, is how it works.
Yeah. Well.
So,
well, anyway,
I just wondered if you had any interactions that you remember with him, or if he. I forgot.
I had many great interactions with him, and that's why I refused to give those tapes. I mean, not that it mattered; they got them anyway. But I refused to cooperate. I didn't want to turn what was a fun conversation on the air into a political football. I personally wish that he had never run. I told him that because I actually think this is something that it's going to be very detrimental to his mental health too, because he wants to be liked, he wants to be loved, he wants people to cheer for him.
You think this could take him down?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a healthy experience. I mean, all these people who and by the way, he's now on this anti-Hollywood kick. He loves Hollywood,
anti-press, anti-everything.
He first of all, he loves the press. He lives for it. He loves people in Hollywood. He only wants to hobnob with them. And all of this hatred stuff directed toward him, it's not good for him. It's not good. And it's... Listen, there's a reason every president who leaves the office has gray hair. It is... Can you imagine being the guy who has to call a mother and tell her son's dead from an action that you put a guy in harm's way in the military? This is fucking crazy stuff you're talking about. There is nothing lighthearted about being the president of the United States. I don't know how
and losing friends. I mean, a lot of those Hollywood people were his friends.
When you
There's
say...
a whole article in the paper today with... oh, God, his name just flew out of my head, but he's the record producer, the mogul. And
Geffen?
No. Hip hop.
Oh, I don't know.
You do know.
Simmons.
Russell Simmons, who says he used to be good friends with Donald Trump. He was on his first date with him with Melania. He used to be at Mar-a-Lago every weekend.
Right.
And now they're not friends anymore.
Yeah, I used to hear from Donald all the time, and now I don't as much. Maybe he's mad that I was a Hillary Clinton voter. But
I think with Donald, we have the same situation going on as we had with Arnold. We won't hear from him until he's out of office.
Right. And I think that's sad too, because why all of this, what did he need it for? It's crazy. What did he need it for?
The same with Arnold. Arnold had this amazing movie career where he was incredibly popular and then became governor of California, was embattled for the whole time he was there.
Yeah, but I think the only reason why he's not running for president is because he can't. Otherwise, he would.
He would have. Yeah, he would have.
Some people have super egos that have to try to reach whatever the highest level they have to reach, and for some people, it's world control. Which, unfortunately, honestly,
And look. So the thing is,
and the other thing is that some of the things you do affect the entire world.
Yeah, and I don't know why you'd want that in your life, honestly. If you're that successful, if you're Donald Trump and you've got billions of dollars, it's crazy. But and the other thing is, again, it's a sad thing. Like I know Donald, I know him well, and he would call me all the time, and maybe at some point he was just like, well, hey, you're not out there campaigning for me or something, but I could no more change my political beliefs than just because a friend of mine is running for office. If Robin tomorrow decided that she was going to run for office, I couldn't support her unless I believed in what her message was.
You better support her.
No, but that's the point. I wouldn't.
What, you wouldn't?
Not if you had views that opposed mine. How could I? What? You would base? You talk about the presidency.
But that's what I'm saying about Donald Trump. You guys never really talk politics. You don't know what a person's politics are unless you discuss them.
So I was like, if you told me tomorrow that you were against abortion being legal in this country, I couldn't vote for you.
Well, I would never say that.
That's one of those issues that is very, very dear to me. I remember the country, what it was like when a woman could not make that decision.
And I'm reading about this new Supreme Court nominee, and he's a textualist, which means you should only interpret what a law means from the words used in the written law.
Well, I happen to be that, by the way.
Really?
I think I am, yeah. I actually am one of those.
You don't believe that the Constitution evolves and you should look at it based on what's happening today?
No. I mean,
No.
today that's how I feel, but tomorrow I could change. That's why I don't run for president. And that's the other thing, too. I think that, like a couple of years ago, Trump was for, the Clintons and all that. And then, then you hear some, good arguments on TV, and you go, okay, I'll be for that, too. So, you got to be you almost have to be superhuman in your staunch beliefs in order to become president of the United States. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to want to impose that on the country, which is what has been happening, that everybody's so polarized and so into what they believe, the two sides can't work with each other.
You've got to have almost a narcissistic core values. Like you have to believe your core values are so important that you want to put them on the whole country.
I was a little bit... I cringed a little bit during the inaugural speech when there was all this religious stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, where are we going here?
And plus, as you get older, too, why would you want that in your life when you're as successful as Donald Trump?
Well, again, you're thinking that there's a top to success. Apparently, there's not.
Listen, I barely want to do this job. So I can't imagine taking on the presidency.
Yeah, he's a different kind of animal. He still wants to achieve something that he hasn't done before.
Yeah, I guess. I don't even know.
Well, he's doing it. He certainly didn't do this because somebody made him.
I think it started out as kind of a cool, kind of fun thing to do in order to get a couple more bucks out of NBC for The Apprentice. I actually do believe that.
You mean this wasn't... He could have bailed at any time,
I told you my belief. No, you can't bail, but you don't bail. Here's what happened, okay? So when Donald's first book came out, it was called Art of the Deal. He wasn't that famous, people knew that he was a billionaire and stuff, and you'd see him once in a while, but he wasn't that famous, and he had to sell books, and so he said, I'm thinking about running for president. Then it was like, hey, Trump might run for president, Trump might run for president, and the book sold like crazy. And then a couple of years later, he put out a second book, and it coincided with an election. I forget which election it was. And there was a rumor, Trump's going to run for president, which he started. He was like, yeah, I'm thinking about it. I don't know. And the second book sold well. Not as well as the first, but sold well. And then...
he was on Celebrity Apprentice.
And NBC fucked with his deal. His deal was coming up for renegotiation. And I think NBC was, I don't think
they weren't even sure they were going to air it.
Yeah. So he said, what the fuck? I'll say I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. At that point, there were 17 guys running, and then you remember he came down the escalator and all that. It was good television. But this time he announced, okay, I'm running. And all of us, and everyone was like, oh, yeah, right, he's running. It's a joke. And by the way, at that point, I said he will get the nomination. And I wasn't kidding. I predicted it.
But I never thought he'd stay in.
Yeah, right. But anyway, so what happened is you started winning primaries and getting big crowds. And at that point, it was like, oh, shit, this could really go down.
I thought he was making ridiculous statements so that people wouldn't vote for him, but they started voting for him.
Yeah, no, people fucked the whole thing up. He just wanted a couple more bucks out of NBC. But... and that's why Donald is calling for voter fraud investigation. He's pissed he won.
He wants his votes taken away?
Yeah, he still wants Hillary Clinton to win. He's so fucking pissed. He's hoping he can find some voter fraud and they'll hand it over to Hillary. That'd be funny.
Hey, get out of there.
Right. But anyway.